Hi, and welcome to the Intellectual Adventure Podcast. Today, we're joined with Chad, Jeff, and myself as we dive into the subject of today's talk, the various smells of different eras and places in time. Now, we're going to be having mostly an organic discussion, so we're not going to really touch base in engagement outposts today, but we will be talking about various records that we brought before we dive in. So let's go ahead and move into the comments. Welcome in, guys.
Yeah.
How's it going today?
It's going pretty well. I'm up here in Portland again at my mom's house, just hanging out. Yeah, my aunt's in town, so having a little family time.
Very nice.
Oh yeah.
How about you, Jeff? Any plans?
I'm doing okay. It's raining out, so I got some yard work done over the last couple of days. That really helped out, makes the place look better.
Good.
Nice.
Ready to move on to making my pond work again.
Nice.
That's exciting.
I got to take it easy because I got to dig an electric line slowly, so I don't damage it underground and have to dig farther.
Yeah. How big is that pond? Is it like? I mean,
it's roughly the size of a pickup bed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe not that much in capacity, just overall size with the filter.
Right.
Yeah, it is about like your Ford truck bed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
In size.
Yeah, it's not too big.
It's really neat. You'll be able to see it. I mean, As for myself, I'm not doing too much other than preparing for next week's interview with Jim Schmidt.
Yeah.
And that's exciting. We're all in the various stages of reading his book, and we look forward to meeting him in panel experience with the show. We should have it. It seems like I think this is going to be one of our biggest turnouts yet. We have 9 people that are going to be there. It's going to be a really fun interview, and I hope many of you are able to join us with this.
Mm-hmm.
Today, Jeff and Chad have 2 vinyl records. We'll go ahead and start with Chad's today.
Nice. So I brought my Jürgen von Manger. I wanted to get the pronunciation right, but it was kind of hard to track down lots of pronunciation. But Jürgen von Manger was he's a German TV actor and comedian, and he was very popular in the 1960s. That's actually when this record was recorded. This record was recorded in 1963, and he was born on March 6th, 1923, and he died at age 71 on March 15th, 1994. But this recording specifically is it's one of his comedy routines. It's actually all in German, so it's pretty neat to listen to. It has a really fun flow and cadence. It makes me wish that I knew more German, because it's a pretty fun one to listen to, and I really like the artwork on this one. I'm looking into a lot of his other records that he's recorded. He really sticks with this artwork, and that's just what I really like. I talk about it a lot. I like old art that pops on these records, and this one just has so much personality, and a lot of his other artwork does. And I really want to collect more from him, just because of his just because of the look and the sound. But I wish I had a little more information about the context of his comedy, but I do not speak German yet.
Well, that's a cool album. The artwork looks a lot like the old Bullwinkle, you know?
Yeah, Rocky Bullwinkle.
Mm-hmm.
Right. When was Rocky?
Similar artwork.
Was Rocky Bullwinkle? Was that the 60s, or was that like 70s?
It may be older than 60s. I'd have to look that up to be sure.
It's been a minute since I watched Rocky and Bullwinkle. My grandma had a VHS of it, and I used to watch Rocky and Bullwinkle when I was at her house.
Yeah, Snidely Whiplash, you know.
Well, as far as Jeff's vinyl goes, I have his vinyl in display right here. We're going to go ahead and show this to the audience.
There we go. The band's name is Trillion. And
I love that artwork.
Well, it comes from the root word to trill, to vibrate, to shake, to warble, to sound or quaver, to roll or twirl, to revolve or trickle. The alternation of 2 musical tones a scaled degree apart. rapid alternation of the same tone. And I equate it to the cranes that are out here in the field. That we have cranes that are native that stay here all year, and I can hear them trilling out when they start calling to each other.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So I got this from my father. He had a client. He was a hypnotist, and he had a client that was what do they call it? An AMP man. Was that what they called him? Where he would shop the music to the radio stations to see what was stuck with the populations.
Oh, I know.
A&R man.
A&R man. That's it. Yep.
Yeah. He is an A&R man.
Yeah.
And so I got this. It was a demo album, not for retail, because they were trying to get airplay to see if they were a likable band and could be produced. So, if they had legs. They did not make it big, unfortunately, but they had a pretty cool sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd love to hear them. I got to listen to them or find a record. Mm-hmm. Well, actually, it's probably rare because they didn't make it into mainstream. So yeah, that record's actually probably pretty rare.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
And the sleeve's actually bigger than the cover, than the case. I think it was meant to be like a poster or something, put up at a record store. I got it in 1978, and I've had it ever since. Sitting there in my stack of stuff.
Yeah, this is very neat. Very, very cool, Jeff. No, thanks for sharing that today.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and move forward, I think, into the precedents before our trial grounds. We'll just quickly touch base in the comments still. And what do you think of today's subject? Are you bringing more of a local smell that you remember from childhood, for instance? Or are you guys going to bring more of a work smell? How do you interpret today's discussion, I guess?
I'll be doing both.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of mine will be more personal and a lot of like regional. I wanted to talk about regional too, because I think the difference of smells between region is something interesting too, of where because even just when I drove up here from, where we're at, past Cascade, Central Oregon, coming up over past Portland, and we're going into the springtime, so all these smells are like really coming out. So it's really interesting to get to smell the transition of the seasons, and we don't always think about that, but it's really fun to really sort of acknowledge that difference and that shift that we all smell, and it makes us it brings me up that this smell in Central Oregon and in Portland, because they're different, but they both signify the moving from winter into summer, that spring smell. And so, I mean, Jeff, is there a spring smell? And Cameron, because you lived there for a long time, is there spring smells down California where you guys are at?
Oh, I've got a good one. I was on a motorcycle ride from Sacramento to LA, and I decided to take the twisty route because I'm on my motorcycle. See, you can't have straight slab when you're on a motorcycle. And so I went down Highway 33, and I went down to Ojai, and I was headed east into LA from say the Santa Barbara area. Ojai is just east of Santa Barbara along the coast. And as I was coming down, it was starting to get dark, but all I could smell was the oranges in bloom. The whole place just was, and on a motorcycle, you can really move through an area and catch smell.
Right.
So that was one that really, I'll never forget that, the coming down into Ojai, it was very warm out. So it was a beautiful evening, just starting to get dark and overwhelmed with this orange fragrance in the air from all the orange trees blooming. And then another time was right after light rain in the high desert, and you could smell all the sage that was in the air, the fragrance of the sage. And it wasn't necessarily blooming, just the water released the smell into the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
those
we
two
get
as far as motorcycling goes, those two are really stand out for me.
yeah, we get something like that with that sagey smell, because when we get our first rain, it hits the junipers, and we get this really interesting sagey junipery smell when it's like about when it's about to rain or raining or had just rained. That is an interesting question. I mean, because some people don't or disagree with this or don't smell this, but I can. There's like this smell before a rainstorm. There's like this ozony smell. You guys know that smell?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people never recognize that. They're like, you can't smell rain. I'm like, yeah, I can smell rain.
Yeah. Part of it is from the air that's pushed in front of the storm. So you get a little of the storm smell in that push. And some of it is if there's just lightning that goes through without any rain or anything, the lightning creates the ozone, which purifies the air. So it makes the air smell different.
Interesting.
And then there's old time smells. As I was growing up in the around the city of Chicago, there was still a lot of coal that was in use. People had coal chutes and coal furnaces in their home, and especially on the larger buildings, the multi-unit apartments, everything was built out of brick. It gets pretty cold, so you needed something that would, they didn't have a place to store a lot of firewood, but they had basements as they could put coal in. So that was the go-to heating in the big cities until gas was piped in everywhere.
Right.
So the smell of burning coal, that and steam engines and stuff like that, that was that smell isn't really around anymore unless you're watching an antique locomotive at a railway museum or like Big Boy just went by, did a tour of the United States.
Yeah.
So we have a really good introductory to today's subject, I feel, and we'll go ahead and dive ourselves into the trial grounds.
I didn't even say anything about my landfill experience.
I'm sure we'll get to landfills.
No, it's just inevitable that it's going to just keep going. So I'm like, no, I have to put a line somewhere. But I did also want to touch on what Red said. I don't know if you saw that, but she was commenting on the rain hitting the ground, and that's petrichor. That's the term.
Petrichor. Okay. Yeah.
Petrichor. New favorite word.
It's pretty cool.
I like it.
Petrichor and archipelago.
It sounds like some sort of metal band. Petrichor. So, but no, please.
You come out in rain gear.
Yeah.
Continue on in your subjects. I mean, if you have something to touch on the landfill right now, Jeff, you totally can.
Yeah, give me 1 minute.
No, it gets kind of deep, and it deserves an explanation of how landfills work. The landfills today are not the dumps that there were years ago. So there are things put into place so that the leaky stuff, the goo that comes out of the bottom, they can scavenge that and have it treated so it doesn't go right into the soil or anything like that. The methane from the decomposing garbage, that is suctioned off and stored and used as fuel to run power generators. It's a renewable resource, and so it doesn't spread underground and then possibly pop up somewhere and create a fire or explosion. And then there's we had to reduce the size of our operating face as much as possible so that we didn't attract pests like flies and seagulls, and also vermin at night. We had to cover everything at night when we went home. We didn't leave any garbage exposed. And then twice a week we would dig what they called the pest hole, which is where all the nasty, we would dig in an old piece of the already finished landfill, and digging through rotting garbage is it, you know, you put it into a dump truck and they take it to the base and redump it. But it's to get rid of all the medical waste, and it's supposedly been sanitized, autoclaved, but still they got to dump it somewhere with all the needles and stuff. And then the dead animals that they don't send to the glue factory, you know, that those particular smells are very, I'll never forget some of those either.
The with the glue factory stuff, they use the hoofs, I know, but do they use the bones?
Oh yeah. They make they'll use it, create a calcium powder that they could put back into the soil, or they'll put it into, depending on what the animal is. If it's you know, they'll put it bone meal as a soil supplement for growing plants. So, and that was another place I've been to delivering equipment. I never worked there, but it was the rendering plant. So the rendering plant, because it also produces products for animal feeds, they have a certain quality of animal, and the individual, you know, ranches, maybe they lost a horse or something, they would come and put it in the pestle as opposed to take it over there to the rendering plant. But the rendering plant was nothing but the smell of death for miles around. You know, they try to keep it contained, but you know, but they try to reuse, you know, everything but the squeal, as they say. Nothing's wasted in the meat industry. You know, they use everything but the squeal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
rendering.
Ugh.
The smell of death is actually an interesting smell to touch on, because not everyone has truly experienced that smell. So a lot of us have. I mean, you can find, you know, rotting animals and you know, dead fish and things like that, because for a long time that's what I associated that smell with, was the smell that
it just brought back a memory.
yeah, like when I would be on
I was throwing rocks at a bloated fish floating on the surface, me and my brother. And just for fun, you know, and it broke open, and then we got hit with the smell and had to leave. You just brought back a memory from my childhood.
That was what kids did before iPads, everybody.
Yeah, fish is a specific dead smell, man.
It really is, but yeah, I would smell that a lot. Like when I would go steelhead and salmon fishing, especially steelhead, because steelhead normally followed the salmon run. Because the salmon would come, lay eggs, and then the steelhead, which are, because for anyone who doesn't know, because salmon, of course, are, you know, salmon. A lot of people know that life cycle, and steelhead follow almost the same life cycle. It's just that they're, instead of being the specific salmon genus, they're just more of a trout genus. They're a trout that went out to the ocean, fed just like a salmon in the ocean, and then they also come right back up their home river. Except for they're less specific. Some steelhead are more likely than salmon to go up a random river, but a lot of the time they do still follow that same drive that salmon have to go up the same home river. But steelhead will go up, follow, and feed on the salmon eggs and dead salmon. And but that smell of that, like, fish, because they'd just be, you know, kind of all over the place. It was like you'd just be fishing and then boom, just like this, like 4 or 5 foot just dead fish. But that smell took on a different context for me after I joined the search and rescue, because it's a reality of search and rescues. You do find deceased missing people, and so now when you don't
want to smell the smell, but it helps you locate as well.
Yeah, and so that's a very specific smell. I know we're getting pretty dark and deep, but that is a you touched on it. You made me think of it when we're talking about horses and the smell of death for miles around. It's like when I smell those that random, you know, dead smell when I'm I smell it sometimes when I'm driving like down highways or something from like roadkill or something like that. But every time that, it just brings me right back into that search and rescue, like, you know, okay, where's this missing you know, like, is it
an animal? Is it a human? Yeah.
Do I have to get them out? Do I have to, you know,
call somebody?
I don't think those things, but it brings me back to that thought process of of being in those situations. Just because it's a very visceral smell, and I also think that smell was also probably far more prolific in history than it is now.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
From ravaging diseases to war,
Mm-hmm.
Pick a battlefield, it smells like that.
I can only imagine.
Even just the Wild West.
Yeah.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
Poachers and stuff. People just shooting animals to shoot animals.
Well, they did the buffalo slaughter to take the food away from the natives and
Terrible.
just ran them over a cliff, just to kill them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. But I can relate with the smell of fish, though, especially working at Fisherman's Wharf. I thought about that all the time. I'm like, this is a very old smell down here, I'm sure, that I'm smelling. Because I'm on the back piers, where the boats have been coming in for years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, gross, man. I'm like, I'm not eating any food off this floor. You cannot pay me enough. Yeah, I'd walk by and I'd see just the skeleton of fish and just the fish heads. And there'd be seagulls all over them. Just loving it.
Yeah.
Foul things.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of seagulls.
Yeah, they are pretty foul.
I've chased them with an RC plane. That was fun. At the landfill, you got to keep the seagulls off the garbage. So.
Oh, yeah. I've seen a few seagulls dive bomb people over their shoulder and hook the side of their container and flip it out of their hands.
Oh, my God.
Right, just so they could eat it off the ground. Yeah.
Yep. People had to warn customers all the time. They're like, do not leave your bread bowl unattended. Like, it will be taken.
It will be taken.
And we're not going to pay for another one.
You will be sorry. Yep.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. I wonder how many people do that. Just run back in the store. A seagull ate my bread bowl. I demand more.
Yeah.
More than you'd think.
That seagull ain't paying in cash.
No.
And there's like 20 of them. They work at groups, but they fight for one. No doubt about that.
Yeah.
It's just like Nemo.
The seagulls knew which were the good trucks too. They, the compactor trash cans that they put outside a Red Lobster, and it sits out in the Sacramento heat for a week before it comes to the landfill. That sucker was ripe. Fish and seafood, that thing was right. Seagulls knew what that one was coming down the road. They'd follow it in. Seagulls are smart. They know which ones are the good stuff.
I think they're smarter than we think. We don't want to imagine a smart seagull. We can fathom smart crows, but smart seagulls is a little scary.
They know enough to come over your shoulder and knock the bowl out of your hand instead of coming at you the other way.
Yeah. But sometimes I feel like crows are smart enough to know that they just shouldn't mess with us. But seagulls are very willing to mess with us.
Yeah. Let's see. They got the one seagull talking to the other. Hey, let's see if we can piss this guy off.
Yeah. Here, let's circle around the boat and get really close, and then land right next to him and squawk.
Right. And then we'll take off and crap on his head.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's the only experience I've had like that stereotypical. Like I was on a boat and we were fishing and we were crabbing, and so there's just bait all over the place. I was younger, so I think I'd already fed the seagulls at some point. So now they're just like, oh my god. But we were fishing and we were crabbing, and I had my arms out, and I just this little streak of white just went on my arm, and I was like, yeah, that's the only time I've ever seen that happen. Like
Imagine going across your hat and down the side of your face. No, it was fun to chase them with that plane. Let me tell you. I'd wait till they came in a group, because they always fly in a group.
Yeah.
I'd wait till they came in, and then I throw the plane straight up in front of them, and then I pick one and chase it, and they would see one of them. It was actually chasing one of them, so they got really wary of the plane after a while.
No, that's smart. It makes sense.
It was fun to chase them too.
Yeah, I'm trying to find this bird that I saw in San Francisco that was there, but I can't figure it out. but it was.
It was
I have
probably a
pictures
cross
of it.
between a human and a bird in San Francisco.
Oh man, how you doing today, Nick?
I'm all right, and you?
I'm
There's
doing
some
well.
humans think they're a bird down there
What?
in San Francisco. There's humans that actually think they're a bird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's worse.
There's all sorts of things in the city we could get into.
I always think of
Including the
the
smell?
Oktoberfest. Yeah, including the
Okay.
smell. Oh, you see
Okay.
that app? The app with all the poop for San Francisco?
Poop map.
Or
Yeah.
Seattle? Yeah.
Cameron was like,
Yeah,
when we
like-
Smell the
visited,
app.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
Poop map.
Cameron and I did see someone when we were down there.
Oh yeah, we did. We did. I remember you commenting. You're like, "Is that on the poop map?"
Yeah. If not, you should put it there.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
It's a
there
whole
should be
world
a-
that smells all its own down there.
It's true.
Yeah. The app should
But-
still do the thing like Google with the poop. And when it's like an accident or something there, it's like, is it still there? You could be like, yes. Poop is still there.
The poop is still there. And
I know that.
they got live streams for certain places so you can see it.
So it's just a turd on the live stream. There's just like one day this will get cleaned up.
my
And we
God.
will witness.
Uh,
Oh my goodness.
What a de-evolution of where the internet has gone, because back in like 2001 you could watch a coffee pot on live stream.
Yeah. Now you can watch people sleep.
well, you get the Century light bulb over in Livermore
And
at the
you
fire
don't even
department.
have to break into people's houses anymore to watch them sleep.
Okay, let's get back. Let's get back to our topic, because I'm trying to comment on this too. Because I lived there, and it was definitely
Interesting.
gross. It was definitely gross. There was a lot of times that you would smell
Poop.
like, yes, poop, of course, but you would also smell a lot of rodents.
and like poop.
And
Like-
rodent poop.
Yeah, even worse.
Rodent
When they
rodent
got
brings
the road back.
kind of must.
You guys get
I've
your
been cleaning my garage. I know exactly what that smells like.
Oh man, you know what's a really bad smell? Is rotting pig corpses.
Yeah, we talked about the smell of rot for a little bit.
When I
Rendering
was
plants.
a kid, there was a pig farm up by where my dad's entrance to the camp is. And we were four-wheeling around there, and we're like, what the fuck is that smell? And when we finally figured it out, it was because I saw a snout on the ground. I was like, what the hell? He's just dumping them in the ditch. So my dad put a stop to that. He was like, you can't be doing that, buddy.
Yeah, we were talking about a rendering plant. I used to deliver forklift to a rendering plant here in the Sacramento area.
What's that?
A rendering plant is where you take all the dead animals and they process it into other products.
Oh, like probably dog food.
Yeah, gelatin.
No, carcasses,
Yeah,
glue, bone meal, blood meal,
Tape.
dog
I guess
food.
it's still glue. Yeah, dog
animal
food. Yeah.
feed, and
Depending
glue.
on how bad the corpse is, like what shape it's in. You know what?
Yeah,
I don't even care.
The bigger animal producers in the Sacramento area on the ranches probably have like a contract to just bring dead animals whenever they have them. You
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah, as long as they're like relatively fresh.
right.
Yeah.
makes sense.
Although the freshness differs depending on how long they've been at the rendering plant.
Oh, speaking of like rotting meat, there was a thing that happened in like the Soviet Union, but the title of the video I was watching was called "Radioactive Meat Train." And one, I think that would be a really good metal band name, and two, that that probably doesn't smell too good either.
Yeah.
Radioactive meat train. So that it's
Yeah.
pre-cooked by the time it gets to the
Yeah, it's like a mobile oven.
Here, yeah, I got a little bit of a question for us too, because one thing that I've been thinking about too is as we think about smells in throughout the eras, because I grew up in like the early 2000s, and so one smell that I really remember is like a difference in sort of the smell of general technology. There was just a different kind of musky, plasticky smell coming off of tech, or that staticky smell for coming off of your TV, like the old glass
Tube TV.
ding ding.
The
I
tube.
can't.
The tube
I'm too young to.
TVs.
Yeah.
Tube TV.
Those had a really interesting sort of smell that came with them too, or sort of that.
You licked them.
Yeah. I remember getting so close to the TV that I'd like feel it.
Yeah.
Like on my
Like pulling your hairs on your
the thing
nose.
you're not supposed to do. Yeah.
It's similar to the ozone after a rainstorm. A lightning storm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the smell of when it's raining is awesome.
And the
Or
smell
like
of the
grass.
electronics when the TV was on, come all those tubes in the back, and you could almost smell the rosin on the solder.
Yeah.
It's all putting itself back together while it's turned on. It's like, shit.
Here's another interesting little fact is that metal, like we think that there's sort of like a metal smell, like you think you can think of what metal smells like, but it's like metal doesn't actually give off any scent at all. What we're smelling is our finger oils combining with the metal, and it's creating it's creating that smell because just because the oils react with it. So that's what we smell when we smell like pennies and things like that. I always just think that's interesting. Of course, there's also the smell of like metal dust, which is a very specific smell too.
Well, there's the oxidation on the surface of the metal that you smell as well.
That's true. Right.
Another smell, talking about places, is going to I've been to the geysers in Northern California. The PG&E has a thermal power plant up there, and renewable resource, right?
Yeah.
Going into the area, though, there are a lot of sulfur vents from the geysers. And same thing with, we went up to Mount Lassen, and they have sulfur that wafts through the air from the vents. And so that's a very distinct smell as well.
Yeah, sulfur sucks.
Yeah.
The smell of sulfur, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lake there's a lake called East Lake, which is formed inside of a large volcanic crater, and they also have a small sulfur vent, which also creates a hot spring over there as well. And there's one side of the lake, the side that's close to those sulfur vents, there where the water, like you can like if you wet your hand, it smells like the water is sulfury.
Right.
But it's interesting because it actually makes this lake like have a lot of life in it. Like there's a lot of fish, and it's a pretty big ecosystem for a relatively small lake. It's very deep, but it's still not a huge lake for the amount of stuff it supports in there. It's pretty impressive with that sulfur. And of course, the Native Americans have been using that lake forever. You can find arrowheads all over the place because they would come up to that lake for the hot springs and for food. But the other amazing thing about that lake is that it's because it's was formed by volcanic activity. There's actually an entire beach of the lake, and a whole stretch of coastline on this lake is made completely of obsidian.
Beautiful.
So that's another reason that Native Americans would go there quite a bit. But
yeah, it sounds nice.
Yeah, walk bare feet.
Yeah.
Across the obsidian. You know what? I always think of too for smells is by the 1500s and before.
Yeah, that had to smell so different.
Yeah.
Like I know
garbage in the streets and dead bodies everywhere.
Yeah, and like they would dump their poop buckets into the streets.
Oh yeah.
Probably just smelled like Seattle.
And they didn't even have a poop map.
Yeah, they didn't need it. Everybody knew.
Everybody knew. That's
right. People were living in the moment then.
Yeah.
But they used to chew on mint leaves at some point as well for like breath, but that was like later. I don't know exactly when.
Yeah.
That era. Did you go to a whorehouse in that era? Like a brothel?
No.
No. Like, you'd have to be desperate.
I can't even imagine going to one now.
Yeah, I know, right? Now they got perfume.
Yeah. I sometimes wonder what era may have smelled the freshest that humans could experience, I guess. I mean, I guess
That
just
was all
pre-industrial. I guess just pre-industrialization. But then you had other bio problems as we've been
Yeah, like-
talking about.
I think that would be site specific.
Right, you're right. Because once you got out of population area, I mean, even in today's area, once you get out of population areas, it
Yeah, like
smells
BC.
far fresher. I mean, it smells so much different. Even just for me driving from Central Oregon to Portland, it's like right when I get past, basically like right past Salem. But on that drive, because it just smells so much different. It's so interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
how
that
much
can't go in
fresher
BC.
Central Oregon smells as compared to the valley. It's so
It's the
crisp.
mountains.
Yeah, the mountains.
Yeah.
Well, in California too, going from one end to the other, you get the bloom from the almonds and the peaches in the spring up north, and then you get the citrus down south,
Mm-hmm.
and then you get the smell of the garlic. The garlic trucks are hauling garlic all over the roads. You get the
Right.
smell of the garlic, and then the tomato trucks are hauling, because huge tomato processing plants all up and down the valley. The whole Central Valley is pretty much half of it is tomatoes for canning, and so the smell of the tomatoes in the tubs in the trucks, you get that. It's kind of they've been in there for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
So following one of those and riding a motorcycle is you get so many more smells. It encases you as opposed to coming through your vents on your car. You're actually within the smell, and it's part. So
In your car, you smell more farts.
yeah, and the hamburger you just ate.
Yeah.
So my best experiences have been on a motorcycle, really, where you just ride into an area and the smell envelops you.
Yeah.
You know what really sucks is when you work in a shitty place that smells real bad all day and it just sticks to your clothes. Like there's a place
Like a landfill?
Yeah, I've worked in a waste transfer place where there was no fresh air, and then I was in I do overhead doors, so we're just constantly going to different places. And this one place is called A12 Future Fuels, where they're making fuel out of poop. And thankfully, the building they store the poo in to put into this machine to make it into fuel or some shit. They didn't have a bunch of poop in there at that time, but you could tell that they usually do.
Yeah.
And there was so much bird shit on the floor in spots that it was like walking across gravel. And yeah, and we had to
Good fertilizer though.
All day. And I was telling buddy, I was like, man, this better not stick to our clothes. This is gonna suck. But that place didn't stick to our clothes as much as this chemical place that we go to. And when you're there. We were doing we had to fix their cables, and that Prospect chemical is just I can't remember exactly what chemical they're using, but when you're in that building, it's very apparent, and it'll stick to everything. And then when you get in the truck, it gets off of you and sticks to the truck. So every time you get out of the truck and get back into the truck at different sites, you still smell this chemical.
Man.
And it is strong. And they say don't wear a mask because they're not processing it. You just don't want to get it wet.
Right.
And we're all right, so don't sweat. All right, got that.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I apologize for the hiatus.
Better.
I am
Formal apology, please.
Dank. So there's something I wanted to touch on, and something in history when Chad was talking about the smells, of I forget exactly how you worded it, the freshest smell in history,
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's one of the wonders of the world, the ancient wonders of the world, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that would be a really cool one, with those Mediterranean winds coming through and all that warmth and humidity through that garden. The smell there must have been fantastic. I mean,
Well, and it makes me wonder what societies that because we were talking a lot about old medieval and old mid 1800s kind of time, but what about cities cities like Roman cities, Greek cities that were as far as we know, not as
They had like more plumbing, but like
yeah.
so like you probably didn't have
Different
as
culture.
much shit smell, but there was still probably BO, and I don't know how used to that everybody gets.
Right.
They did have those public baths too, though.
Yeah,
Those are gross.
yeah, because I know that
I mean,
that
it's
Greeks
not
and
like
Romans
today
did
where it's
take,
every day.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like I would wonder what it would smell like to walk through Athens, or what would it smell like to walk through?
Imagine like you go from now and you just get teleported to there.
Yeah.
It would be like really strong.
Yeah, that's the concept that really sparked my interest in this whole thing is the concept of being in this time period where we're totally used to this smell. Like we smell the smell of this era every day, and of wherever region we are. But to get transported, immediately back and it would just be, to me, that concept is something, because it's something we'll never get to experience. But it is, I don't know.
I'm going back toward the coal smoke, because they had a lot of blacksmiths back then, and also they were forging bronze. So
yeah,
you would have a lot of coal smoke as well.
Something that would be interesting to touch on too is the smell of the lumber towns, because that's something Jeff and I are used to being in Quincy. That there's the sawmill road.
Oh yeah, cedars.
I love that smell.
Everybody knows how everybody knows how much they love the smell of Home Depot. But I can only imagine Milltown. That had to have a real fragrance to it. If you're cutting it every day.
You were there. You were there, Chad.
It's true. Yeah.
You could technically smell it when we were there.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice it probably more so when we go back, because it's very distinctive for how my town's always smelled. Like that smell has always been the same.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that's got to be a nostalgia thing for you too.
Big time.
Yeah.
And it is for my dad, because he grew up in the I think at that time, it was technically like late 70s that he was in Quincy. And there used to be a lot more sawmills at that time. So he describes when they had have you ever heard of sawdust?
I've heard of sawdust. I'm just kidding.
No, but sawdust. Jeff might know the technical name, but they're like sawdust silos. And they put the sawdust in there before they were using it for more stuff.
Press board.
They just put extra, things they couldn't process in these big silos, and
they had to keep it dry, otherwise it would compost and light on fire.
Yeah.
So they would, but a lot of those silos they light on fire though,
right?
And they just keep them burning. And so he remembers driving through with my grandpa and seeing these big metal silos that had glowing on the top, and that was like a big thing.
Yeah, we went to one out here at a cabinet shop. And basically, they vacuum all their machines when they cut the wood, and it goes into the silo for storage. Yeah. And then they dump it out and haul it like to the lumber mill for power. They'll burn it for power.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So
I forgot that's what they use it.
We went out on a fire at one of those here at a cabinet shop.
For a fire on one of those?
Yeah, one of those metal containments that you're talking about. For sawdust, because it wasn't fully dried, it composted.
Yeah, because if they get hot, they can get hot enough. Oh, yeah. Speaking of that, that's another really sort of specific smell, like a rural smell that I think of that would be the smell of sort of that like damp hay, or like a large pile of natural material. It kind of gets that like musky smell. It's interesting.
It's true.
And the talking about different cities, like England, a lot of the cities were similar to what we've already discussed with San Francisco and the old times before indoor plumbing. But the royalty had their own gardens, which would smell beautiful depending on the bushes and stuff. And then they had the greenhouses as well. So the royalty didn't experience the same smells as the plebes did. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the royalty had access to things that would mask odors like perfumes. The common person didn't have stuff like that. You know, they were barely getting by on their porridge.
That is an interesting thing too. Was the onset of perfumes, because I always think perfumes kind of fascinate me. Just the weird things that are put in them sometimes, because there's very strange ingredients in there that culminate to. I mean, less so now, but very much back then. I mean, you were using things like ambergris, ambergris inside of perfume, things like that, like very strange material to make these unique scents. But it's interesting to look at the amount of effort that was put into making humans not smell bad, because I have a feeling that for a long part of humanity, people just smelled bad, but we didn't think of it as smelling bad. Probably, I sometimes wonder that, because I know that if you, I mean, obviously there's smells that we associate as bad because we associate them as being unclean, because humans are grooming animals. Like a lot of us want to self-groom and take care of ourselves, and so I wonder. And I mean, obviously in history that, has gotten, there's been different times where there's been different emphasis on it, more, less. That is an interesting one to look at, is the different smells that could come from different historical forms of grooming. Like, because I know in the Middle Ages, people used to put all sorts of crazy stuff in their hair to get it to do stuff. And it's like, you got to wonder what sort of smells all those things put off. It just, yeah.
Well, I mean, mercury has a smell, I believe. Liquid mercury.
I believe so too, but I couldn't think of.
I know Freddie Mercury did.
But yeah, it's I definitely wouldn't be able to. It's one of those things where I think it does, but I couldn't think of what it would smell like, and I haven't really heard anybody talk about it. We should look it up. What does mercury smell like? I'm sure there'll be a lot of people like, don't smell mercury. But
oh yeah,
do you know mercury is magnetic?
I did know that. I feel like I'm embarrassed. I don't know as much about mercury as I should, because it is a really cool metal, but all I really know about it is what everybody knows about it, is that it's a liquid at room temperature and it is in fish. But
oh no, okay, no, excuse me. That's the danger part about mercury, and that's actually where I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah,
that's the catch-all, is it's odorless.
Mm-hmm.
So it vaporizes at room temp.
Yeah,
partly, or like just above.
Mercury? No, it's liquid at room temp.
Yeah. Well, hold on.
I think it's like vaporizes at like 80.
All I meant was the smell. I wasn't really getting into the chemistry of it, but if we must know, I'll look, because
I don't remember any smell from whenever I played with mercury. That was a long time ago. It gets back into smelting. They use mercury to extract gold and silver out of ore, and then they'll smelt it back into bars. They'll chemically remove it. They'll chelate it and then melt it down.
Yeah, so even at room temperature, mercury will slowly evaporate and form mercury vapor, although the rate of vaporization is much slower than at the boiling point. So even simple exposure is enough for mercury to evaporate slightly. So theoretically, any mercury, though, is not something that a lot of people shied away from using. So,
right.
Oh man, they still use it in like undeveloped countries. And there's like a documentary where a buddy has like a barrel full of it, and he stirs it with his leg.
I mean, if you're quick, it doesn't have time to really.
But it's all about exposure. It's like you can touch it, but it's like every time you touch mercury, you're absorbing heavy metals into yourself, and heavy metal poisoning is no joke. Like that's just rough.
I've had mercury fillings since I was like 5 years old.
Oh, interesting.
Man,
I had them taken out eventually, but
those are.
So you're a Mad Hatter, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
You've seen my garage, right?
Oh man.
Is the garage the same as the airplane hangar, or are these two different realms?
Two different realms.
Two different realms. Yeah, because I've only seen the airplane hangar.
Yeah, it depends on what you want to get into, you know.
Yeah, no.
Out there is the
talk
welding
about
and
the
the
smell
cars.
here. I'll
Over
talk
here
about
is
a
more
smell.
yard
Yeah.
related.
I'll tell you about a smell though. One smells Jeff's hanger. Man, you go in there and all the metal and then the
Metal,
car parts
history,
and
oil, yeah,
the
beer.
wood, pop, yeah,
I like
it's all
getting in.
there.
I like opening up that piper and poking my head in there and get that. It's like old car smell, you know. Like
Yeah.
you
There's
find that old car in a garage that's been there
Yeah.
since the 40s.
new car smell, old car smell. Both are
Oh
just,
yeah,
The car
Yeah.
smell.
I like old car smell better.
mm-hmm.
Although my Conestoga wagon will have new car smell eventually. Gonna get a complete interior kit for it, headliner, the whole thing.
You know, we could ask ourselves the question: why 9 times out of 10 does, say, grandma's house smell different than our house? Like, ooh, now that's a nice garage.
But she's always cooking.
My grandparents' basement smelled very, very musty.
Yeah, it's like because
Oh,
every
basement
time I
smell,
go
yeah.
to my grand I wonder if it's the things inside of the house. Is it like a mothball thing? It's like what?
Nice. Which one do I get?
This is just an
I'll get
example of like if you look at how many things are in here and all the smells that
Yeah.
could happen.
No,
you know?
garage smell is a really interesting smell. You know, the smell of like old gasoline, like inside of like a lawnmower, like when you walk into a shed.
Yeah.
That
Oh, yeah.
smells a
Big stroke smell.
very nostalgic for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I've
like
had
that.
one of those green cars there.
Oh,
I
yeah,
want-
no
I want one of
kidding.
those bad.
Yeah, it was a '67
Oh,
Dart
man,
GT.
we gotta hide the evidence so they don't car rant us.
Yeah.
Old car smell, you know.
Mhm.
Slant six that burned oil. That's another smell right there. Burning
Yeah.
oil.
That's true.
I know. Let's see here. Another one that would be cool to show a theoretical of is this. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, I got that Dodge Dart. If you didn't drive it every day, the rings would lose their seal, and you had to literally, as somebody was cranking it over, pour oil down the carburetor to remake a seal so it would start.
Wow, that's a nice feature.
Mm-hmm.
I
can't wait to get it. I can't wait to get a. Oh, go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry.
Little slow drizzles, all you need. You don't need much.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to get an old car with a keyless start, as in roll it down a hill. That's what I
I've had
want.
the Volkswagens like that.
Yeah.
Park backwards on a hill.
There we go. Yeah.
No,
That's what I'm talking about. Is like I'd love to see what a city like that would smell like in history, because that type of a city is so far different than the cities of
Depends on how
that we
they-
were talking about.
I think it would depend on how they keep their water.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm not seeing a lot of flowers in that picture. Down in the bottom there, maybe.
Well, and it's all theoretical because no one really knows, and that's the true nature of it. So it's all kind of, from what I understand it.
Yeah, and I've been to many botanical gardens, and some of them have, depending on where you're at in the garden, you'll get the smells from the plants that are in bloom. But even in the tropical areas, the plants will bloom and then they produce fruit. So, you get the smell of the blooms, then there's a lag, and then you get the smell of the fruit, the ripe fruit.
Here's another common nostalgia smell that I feel like a lot of us share is at least I feel this is the musty, dank water smell, like the smell of old recycled water. Because every time I smell that smell, I think of amusement park rides like the Pirates of the Caribbean ride in Disneyland or a log ride. I mean,
They all have algae in them.
Yeah. Do you guys?
It's that
think
green
of that? Like, when you
grass
smell that
smell
musty
in the
water
water.
smell. Do you think of like a roller coaster, or is that just me?
I think the musty smell makes me think of my grandparents' basement.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
old
Yeah,
watery
basement.
smell.
Yeah, and the old water smell is more like fresh grass for me because it's got algae in it.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know?
because it's not a bad smell. I mean, because I associate it with how fun it is to go to Disneyland, but I mean,
Yeah, they don't. If they don't agitate their water, then the algae builds up. So you'll smell an algae smell too.
mhm.
Jeff,
Unless
you
there's
know
an
the
animal that
smell.
fell in there.
Amber waves of grain.
You know the smell, Jeff. This is a
Oh, yeah.
California smell.
Yeah. Right after they mow.
This is just in general in Central California, Central
Uh-huh.
Valley. So
You know what's another nice smell is, and motorcycling, of course, is where I picked it up. But it was I was cruising up Highway 99, and all the eucalyptus trees were blooming along the freeway. They plant them as a windbreak along the freeway down there through Tulare County, Fresno County, that kind of thing. And I was riding up from an event, and all those trees were in bloom, and just the smell was incredible. Eucalyptus blooms. I've had probably my most memorable experiences on my motorcycle passing through different areas.
I should get
And like that rendering plant, I tried not to pass by the downwind side of that.
yeah, I can imagine that's pretty rough.
Yeah.
The only real thing the only real experience I have with a rendering plant is playing Eno. Seeing the rendering plants there, because
I can't imagine what all that would smell like on that scale. Oh my gosh!
Well, you've
got the smell of industry too, on top of the smell of just but like
you get a big penalty on your beauty on your city if you have a rendering plant. Yeah.
You gotta keep it just on the outskirts there.
There's Rosie.
Rosie,
Hi, Rosie.
hi.
Hi.
Man. I have to go take out my camera and show you Walter. Walter, say hi to him.
Yeah.
To Rosie.
Yeah, she's a good dog.
I think she's asking to go out. I'll be right back.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, here, actually give me one moment too.
Take a break.
Do it.
Okay. So now that Dankly derailed me.
You're welcome. I can bring you back by saying the smell of your book.
Smell of books, though, is a good one. Libraries have a good smell.
Yeah, the Scholastic Book Fair.
Yes.
Maybe that's why, because I was wondering why commonly like your relatives' houses have a distinct smell, and I wonder if it's sort of because of those older materials that are just sort of more present in those homes, and older clothing that just sort of takes on a new kind of smell. Old clothing also has a very specific scent to it. Like when you step into a thrift store, Goodwill.
I have super old comic books, and they smell too.
Yeah.
There's a really
the textiles.
yeah.
They're like from the 80s, some from the 70s.
Nice.
I have one from the 60s, but it's like not in good shape. It's the gentleman. That one, I don't even want to smell that one.
Yeah.
The fact that we can't see you when you say that. I don't know.
Trunks. Like I have these two trunks from the 30s.
Yep.
And when I open those up, there's like an old smell in them too.
A lot of them were lined with cedar.
Yeah, cedar's my favorite smell.
Yeah.
And then some of them had a paper interior too, so the decomposing paper on the inside will also create its own smell. I've got several too. I got a bunch.
It's a great thing. That's where I put my comic books. Nancy Payne stuff in the other one.
Well, see, the cedar will keep out most insects except for like centipedes.
Mm-hmm. That's something I've been wanting to do to my. I have a sort of a truck camper, like canopy camper project going on, and I want to line the sides of it. Like I want to build a little enclosed camp, like a little enclosed sleeping area inside, and line the sides with cedar just to have it smell, just so that every time you get in, it's just that's what I want. And also, I didn't think of that, Jeff, but you're right. That would help to keep insects out of my truck too.
Yeah. And they have cedar closet liners that you can buy. They are tongue and groove and they fit together.
Mm-hmm.
Check your local large hardware store.
Yeah.
Cedar closet liners is what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll come like 3 and 4 foot long sections.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I want to do tongue and groove cedar on that truck or if I want to do like a fence cedar. just to have it be like a rough, because it's camping and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
But
that made me think of something. Now I'm spacing on it. It was like it had to do with the weather. I do know that wet roots, though, like mycelium, and soil in general is something I really, really distinctly remember with a lot of the work I've done, because the soil is always a little different in different areas. But when something smells similar, you can like almost recognize the minerals to a degree in that compound. If something has more clay or something has more sand.
Right.
I wonder if that has been used more in history, like the concept of like smelling earth to try to tell if it's good, or I don't know enough about farming to really speak on that though.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But definitely
There's
before there was like
that'll
sophisticated
smell it
methods
for
of
oil.
soil testing. Yeah.
Like if you have an oil spill, there's a guy that'll like grab the dirt. He just kind of smells it, and then he's like, "Hey, I gotta keep digging."
Yeah, I definitely think it's a thing. Like, especially with trying to discover suitable soil for planting. So.
Well, and I can totally imagine that if you noticed it, if you picked up on it, I'm sure people like agriculture and farmers of history have noticed that and utilized it. It would not surprise me if that was the case, using that smell. Well, that's an interesting segue, actually, is what if we talked a little bit about smell in the concept of an evolutionary advantage, as how do humans use it to our advantage? Because we don't use it nearly as much as other animals, but we do. It's
in a different way.
Yeah, because for us, it's very connected to our memory. Not to say it's not like that for other animals. We just don't have that context or frame of reference for them. But because I think that's why smells are so. I mean, everybody knows this. It's because if we smell something bad, it's generally bad for us. Your body's trying to warn us that it's bad. But
animals usually use smell for mating and food, whereas humans use smell for more than that. They use it also in their everyday goings. Is this fire, the fire doesn't smell right, it's too smoky, so we gotta heat it up a little more, or
right,
we want it to smoke, so it's too hot, we gotta cool it down, and for whatever reasons.
It's like we use the whole combination of our senses simultaneously to create the to render the world around us, and where our smell, sight, and hearing all go together simultaneously, rather than us focusing on one or utilizing one, like say dogs or other animals like that take in so much more information through their nose, where we take in information from everything simultaneously. Of course, emphasis on eyes, but our ears and nose create that atmosphere around us that helps us actually place ourselves in what we're seeing. It grounds us, smell and hearing. But I think smell does a lot for that, because it's our hearing is a primary source of information, but our smell isn't something we're going to for immediate information. It's a background information. It's our own awareness of the materials around us. Not so much what we can hear, but what is around us that we can't see, can't hear, but is there. And it helps to solidify that world that we're trying to perceive and experience. Very interesting.
I'll pass on a little thing. I had a room inspection in the military, so I wanted to make sure that I passed with flying colors. So I washed the entire bathroom with straight bleach. But I burned out a lot of my sinuses with it. It took like a month to recover. And since then, I've been hypersensitive to strong odors, which includes perfumes. I mean, to the point where it hurts my sinuses to smell strong odors like that. So I've become more sensitive because of that to good and bad. And so since then, all my experiences are a little more, the the roses, they smell so much better. And I go out into the greenhouse, and we had the Lisa planted hyacinths, and they were blooming, and I could open the door and you could tell right away because they all popped open all at once, and the whole place is hyacinth smelling. So it's like it overwhelms you. And all the motorcycling I've done and stuff like that. So I've been kind of tuned in. I like the old coal smell when I go to the steam engine museum, but I don't necessarily think I would like it as an everyday experience. So
that's sort of a.
And the rendering plant, same thing. I could handle a visit to go drop off or pick up a machine, but I couldn't work there. It's just wouldn't work for me.
Yeah, because I lost my train of thought. Never mind. Well, I could touch on what he said, just a different point, which is I have a similar thing going on with the smell of diesel, because I worked on a train yard for a long time. Well, not for a year, which is long enough for where you're on this ramp, and it's like kind of this base, and so you just get this settling of this just constant diesel oil grease smell, because we're just working around this heavy stuff. And I'm sure, Jeff, you're very familiar with that kind of scent. And now every time I smell that diesel-y smell, it just brings me right back to that working on that ramp, just because it was so all encompassing. And it's like you start to not notice it after a while when you're in it every day, but then when you smell it again, you're just like, whoa. It just is really fascinates me how much memory and emotion just is brought up when you smell things. It's just so instant. It's so and it's so visceral. It's really why I wanted to make this topic, is that concept fascinates me, because everyone kind of knows that. We all know that we get nostalgia from smells, but the fact that we do is really cool.
Yeah. And it's not always a good smell that brings you back to some, like you're talking about railroads. I loaded sea containers at the Chicago Northwestern Railroad before I moved to California. Yeah. So I know that exactly what you're talking about, that diesel engine sitting there idling for hour after hour, because it costs less to let it idle than it does to restart the dang thing.
Yeah, and that ramp that I was on, that ramp is running, and most train ramps in the country run 24/7. Yeah. So it's just there is never a time when there is not 5, 6, 7 diesel machines just operating and going all over the place. Yep. And trains, and oh my god! Yeah.
Well, you got all the truckers bringing their loads in and picking their loads up and hauling them out, and then you got the yard spotters that are lining the trains up and so that it can be loaded. Yeah, I was a spot. I started as a spotter, and I ended up in the MyJack M1000.
Nice. What were you driving? Because I was driving a Hostler, because I was picking up shipping containers and moving around.
Yeah. I think it was Ottawa brand, yard hustler,
nice,
yard goat. They go by many names. It had the hydraulic fifth wheel, so you back under, you raise it up, you don't have to do the wheels.
Yeah, I had one of those.
All you do is throw on the
I had
emergency release.
Yeah. Did yours have the old school well, not old school, but like the transmission, like in the school buses, where it's just a button, where it's just like reverse, forward, neutral?
No, I think we actually had a stick. But
that wouldn't surprise me.
And they had no suspension on the back, so when you raised up that fifth wheel, it didn't squat your suspension, so you couldn't go very fast because the rear end would bounce all over.
I'll tie it into one last thing, and then we'll move on. But another thing that I think of all the time is we had one truck on that ramp that was the stinkiest truck. It was from like 1985, and it was we called it Sweaty Betty. We were like, new guys on the ramp, give him Sweaty Betty. Yep. All right, we'll move on though.
Sweaty Betty's got to be a topic, man. We got to come back to that. It's gonna happen. Yeah. But I did.
That would be in the rabbit hole.
I did remember one thing earlier. One of the smells that gets me is like, especially growing up going to the Oregon coast, when the ocean would hit the tide pools and those formations and make that mist. and then you get the kelps and the seaweed coming in, and that fresh salt scent.
Seaweed.
Yeah,
and,
it's
and
a
the
really
barnacles.
yeah.
The seaweed smell I'm not a big fan of because it's kind of like a bunch of fish guts and all that kind of gross stuff.
But I love that smell. I love it all. I love the funk.
You get a little bit of that green algae smell, the green grass, fresh cut grass smell mixed in with the dead animals. So,
Oh yeah, that's death too. There's a lot of death.
We should ask ourselves a real quick question, because I know there's a lot of smells that smell bad, but that some people like. Like, I enjoy lots of smells that smell bad. Like, I love the smell of WD-40 gas. Oh, lots of people like smell gasoline, cow manure. List goes on. And I have more. Yeah, I have more problems with fragrant smells, like lotions and perfumes and things like that. I have it freaks me. It gets me. I'm doing it right now. It's a very strange thing for me, of where I far prefer more industrious smells, and I don't know why.
I'll tell you one that I hate.
Yeah.
And a lot of people love, but allergy haters will get it. Is hay and grass.
That's my
I
dad.
can't stand it. Like,
Hay.
I love grass
it
and hay
smell.
from an anatomical level. Like, it feels cool. It's cool. It's a plant. It's there. Sure. But man, it destroys me. I just can't. I can't. I love how evolution is. I'm okay with certain, things, but grass and trying to cross my hand. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Its defense works against you.
It still cracks me up though.
Grass type Pokemon would be super effective against you.
Okay.
Now you're just throwing up gang signs.
It bothers me, man. I can't. These two fingers want to work together all the time.
What are you? Wait, Cameron. What are you talking about? What issue are you having?
These two fingers, I can't fully independently move them.
Could you earlier? What's
No. Like, see this hand. Look, I could do that totally fine.
Yeah.
But this hand, when I tried to do that same thing, this is what happened. That's literally what happened.
Wow.
I can't. It literally wants to fight me.
It just flips back up.
That's why I couldn't be a surgeon. Ultimately, but then I decided to do something different.
Yeah.
Before I figured that out, and then I was like, "Oh, that would have been awesome to find out."
That would have been great.
Be like, "Oh, okay, let's do something."
Everyone's like over here doing all these complicated things, and you're over here like,
throwing gang signs and stuff, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not having a stroke, I swear. Just trying to
Yeah.
get my finger to go over here.
And they're not gang signs.
Yeah, I'm sure the patient would love that.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel so confident.
Prove
What's
they're not gang
your
signs.
top 3 things? My top 3. Oh. I meant my good hand.
So here's another smell. How about hospital smell?
Ooh, good one.
Big time.
Good one.
Medical.
That is
Yeah,
another.
morphine.
Yeah, morphine, or that sterile smell you smell sometimes. Like, that's what it makes me think of in hospitals.
Yeah.
It's just like this smell of this sterility that is very, very odd.
Yeah.
Oh, morphine, of course.
Formaldehyde.
The biggest thing for me when I go to a
Formaldehyde.
hospital is like the smell of scrubs, or like that it's almost like that plastic smell you were talking about.
Yeah.
Or even if you got the hand sanitizers, that smell.
Yeah, well, because I always faintly smell antiseptic. There's always a lot of cleaning products that you're smelling, and that linen-y, plasticky, like,
Yeah.
Well,
And all the gowns are plastic. They just throw them away instead of washing them anymore. The scrubs are fabric, but they'll put on over like an apron or something, and that'll be like a plastic.
Right.
Yeah, I think another thing to highlight is like courthouses. A courthouse or a structure that has a lot of marble or stone to it.
Churches.
And it's churches. Very
It's very
dank scent.
yeah. Well, because it's it's sort of the stone smell, or like the smell of like a mausoleum. Very bizarre smell.
Very earthen.
Yeah, very earthen, but also very there's something about it to me that makes it smell official. Like when I smell those types of things, my brain takes on this reverence of like, oh, where I am is important. Whether that's at a courthouse or a mausoleum or church, there's this smell that just triggers this idea of importance to me, which is also interesting.
No, I could agree with that.
That's another thing that I think is interesting about humans is that we because obviously smell is for our own defense. You know, we can smell things that are bad. I said that earlier, but that we also so readily associate it with things that are good, things that are, you know, good emotions or good ideas or things that make us happy. You know, we associate it a lot with that too. Like, in fact, I think we almost do that more. So interesting. Yeah. I've said that's interesting so many times. God.
You brought up churches. Churches have their own smells unique to them with their incense burning.
Yeah, incense burning, and then also, you know, it's like I also feel like we talked about the library.
A lot of wood in there too.
A lot of wood and that kind of smell of the hymns and things like that. There's just a real.
And if the pipe organ is any good size, then you'll get a little bit of the bronze smell of the pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we won't touch too much into this one because we all know it's not beautiful, but locker rooms. Locker rooms have their own. Man, I distinctly remember Greenville's. Like, I'll never forget the smells because it was bad, and it was like how many generations of local families have worked out and changed and done their thing in this area. Like,
gyms.
It's just in the floor, it's just in the walls. Like,
yeah.
Even just the gym. When you go into a gym, it's like sometimes it's like sweat and rubber.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just, it's very, you know what you're smelling. It's very, very apparent what you're smelling.
Yeah,
I have to say,
I smell that.
I gotta say, of all the locker rooms that I've been in, the one for the swimmers has been the least smelly, but it's very chlorine or bromine like.
Oh yeah, very chlorine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, swimming's relatively clean. But there's always that one person, like, you know, when we're at campfire, Chad, and it's like, wow, man.
They made us only smell the chlorine when someone's dirty.
That was a very sensitive smelling person, obviously.
Yeah. You know, we had to take a shower before we even got in the pool, so.
Yeah. Here's another question about eras, too, because this is something that I remember as a kid, is when I was younger in the early 2000s, I mean, and this is just my own frame of reference, because I only have one, but I remember back then it smelled so much more like stale cigarettes. There was a far more present stale cigarette smell to me especially inside, because I grew up in Portland. So especially like when I go to Portland, it was just like, and now I just don't smell that as much, and I feel like that's just due to the prevalence of cigarettes being less and less.
When I was growing up in Gas Bay, it was in Quebec. They were one of the last places to allow smoking inside. So like Tim Hortons had a smoking section, which was just like a glass door with a wall that was glass. It was really funny because you open that door and then all the smoke comes out into the normal area. And it was pretty funny. And you just always smell cigarettes. And like you go to the mall and they're just smoking on the benches in there and stuff. And you're just kind of laughing because you're like, I wanted to go to the mall to get a new shirt today, but I guess I'm getting a shirt that smells like cigarettes.
Right.
Yeah,
that part's wild. I can't believe they let people smoke in like clothing stores and stuff. It's like, or food stores.
They used to smoke in hospitals.
They used to smoke in planes too.
Yeah, that's what gets me is the level of where you could just smoke anywhere, and it was far more just culturally accepted to just do that anywhere, and so I just want to imagine. I wish I could go into a restaurant in the 1980s and like try to like just
Food
What
and
was it
stale
like, Jeff? I
cigarettes.
wasn't there.
And a lot of shame.
Well, see, there was the smoking sections. You know, they were trying to
But they didn't like airlock them.
they made the laws, but they didn't really tell the people how they had to adhere to the laws. So they had to have a smoking section and a non-smoking section. But you go into a restaurant, and you know how you got
It's just all open.
Yeah.
booth. Well, this would be non-smoking, and this would be smoking, and there's nothing between them. No wall or anything. You know, it's like, well, I'm in the smoking section, so
Yeah,
but
the
the
smoke knows
smoke
to stay in
doesn't
its
stay
spot.
there.
The smoke knows, okay? It knows
Yeah.
not to leave the non-smoking area.
You know, and I
It'll
heard
be
something
banned.
about that too, Dink. Now that you brought that up. The smoke is a positive charge, and people who don't smoke have a negative charge, but people who do have a positive charge. So that smoke binds the person that doesn't smoke because they're negatively charged. How about that?
Well, that's not good.
Oh,
That would explain why when you're if you're smoking, you don't smell it nearly as much as like when you're just around it.
yeah, secondhand smoke.
Yeah, like when you smell it from a distance, you're like, whoa. But like if you're like right there, it's like a little less. Yeah, that's interesting.
And it's similar to a campfire as well. You know, somebody who smokes and is positively charged, that's campfire. Does, you know, no matter where you go, the smoke always follows you.
Yeah, you got to sing White Rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, cigarette smoke, you're sitting there, you know, you're sitting there at an outdoor patio, but the wind isn't blowing. So you're sitting next to somebody who's smoking and the smoke comes over. So you go sit on the other side and it goes the other way, you know. And
Yeah, it's run away from it.
Yeah.
It's all positive and negative charge.
Interesting.
I love the smell of campfire.
I do too.
Oh yeah.
I do too.
Another one,
And
smell of
barbecue.
leather.
Yeah, leather's a good one too.
I would
You know
love
what
to
should be
smell an
illegal?
old school tannery. That's probably a
yeah.
smell that really was really prevalent inside of those towns too, as well as, you know, blacksmith, tannery. I'm sure those put off so much fragrance.
Didn't they have a vat of stuff that smelled nasty that they would tan the hides in?
Oh,
Yeah, probably that oil or.
yeah, that was that's the same kind of stuff that they would use in medieval times. Tannin, maybe.
Tannin.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's tannin because they would process the tannin from urine
Right.
back in medieval times. That's why peasants would be barefoot, stamping wool down for cloth
Mm-hmm.
or the cloth sheets. I forget exactly the process, but it's wild.
Yeah.
They figured that out.
It was not a nice process.
That's a smell. That's actually something they talked about back in medieval times.
Right.
That was a very common smell, is urine, for that fact. They
Ammonia.
would save it.
Yeah.
It was
Oh
useful.
yeah, that's
Mhm.
right.
They'd have people that would come collect the urine from pots,
Straight from
I
you.
believe.
Oh, piss boy.
Yeah.
Come hold the pot.
The technical term, the PC term is gong farmer.
Piss boy and gong man.
Yeah.
This should be a comic strip. Piss boy and gong man.
They just run up and they hold a pot while you pee, and then they run away.
They're just gone. Clean as the wind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you barely even knew
No
they were
blank
there.
comes to mind with that one.
You thought you were pissing in a bush, but it was in a pot all along. They're stealing it. They're stealing your pee.
Man.
Little piss goblins.
We had a Renaissance fair in middle school, and one of my friends dressed up as a gong farmer. So he like wore really raggy clothes and like put
That's
brown
funny.
streaks all over him, put brown streaks all over his face.
Oh wow.
It was the best. He was a legend for that one because the teacher was like, I really appreciate the level of immersion that you're doing here, but
He's like, these are real piss streaks.
Nice research.
Man, that's inspiring. I want to do that now. Like, make that fake, like oatmeal poop, and just like really get into it, man. Put a burlap sack on. Oh man.
yeah, that's what he did. Was wearing a
Black cap.
Yeah. What did I do? I'm pretty sure I just dressed as an archer. Like I made myself like the pointed cap and just wore I remember that was a fun one. We should have a topic about transition between medieval into Renaissance. That would be a really cool topic to have.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really funny era.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
Stop saying what I'm saying, Chad.
I always go back to Monty Python on all that stuff. I think they nailed it.
Another
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelled of elderberries.
Yes.
Another good.
Before I insult you again.
Another good smell, though, that comes to mind with all of this is the smell of streams, going to the river.
Yeah.
And especially in like the springtime, autumn time, when the winds are breezing through and there's all those different temperatures and
the mist of the water
around and the mist.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it's a very calming smell and an environment. So
I like some of the way that heat can change smell too, of where stuff smells a little different on a hot day. Sometimes it smells better, sometimes it smells worse. But
absolutely,
it's interesting to look at heat as a catalyst to how, especially nature, really, like how heat can make nature smell so much different.
Yeah,
that made me think instantly about cooking.
Oh yeah,
and a steak. Throw a steak on a grill.
Yeah,
or bacon.
Smell that.
Little bit of heat makes raw bacon taste or smell really good.
Oh yeah,
that's something we're missing out on from history, is because I'll bet you cooking used to smell even better because it was all done on wood fire.
Wood
So
fire.
you had wood fire smell and food smell. Oh man, that's the best. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a Kahlua pork here. It's a pork shoulder roast wrapped in banana leaves and then cooked in coals.
That sounds really
nice.
Good. That sounds really good.
My bananas are large enough that I can get some fresh leaves off of them. So, and I have a bunch of fruit wood that I need to get rid of. It's small limbs. So I'm gonna do a little. I got a barrel that I'm gonna put on a side, and I'm gonna put the pork roast in the coals of all that fruit wood. And it's going to be delicious. It'll take about 10 hours to cook, low speed, low heat. And it'll shred it for sandwiches.
Ooh.
Hawaiian rolls,
so good.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
And it's banana leaves, a pork shoulder roast, salt, and pepper. And that's it. Add it to a roll, one of those Hawaiian rolls, and you're good.
Oh, yeah.
So, I've made it before, and my banana leaves are big enough I can do it again now. So
nice.
They're in my living room. The bananas. But yeah, I'm gonna make do with the. I got to get rid of that wood anyway. So if I'm cooking with it, I won't get in trouble with the HOA, like as if I just make a fire.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Damn, my neighbors don't cry too much anyway. I'm pretty good with all my neighbors. Just hand out give them some eggs, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I could use eggs." Free eggs. Oh, and you didn't wash them. You don't have to refrigerate them. Heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Delicious.
And that brings back to the smell of food and cooking eggs and bacon in the morning, or cooking. My grandmother would always have something on the stove, a pot of soup or stew or something. So that was always nice. And she was Czech, so she would do a pork roast surrounded by sauerkraut in like a big cast iron pot. And she would put a little caraway seed in with the sauerkraut, and then she would cook the roast and the sauerkraut covered in the oven until the roast was done and the sauerkraut was like golden brown and caramelized.
God,
and that would be so good. You would smell that for hours while it was cooking, with the tanginess of the sauerkraut mixed with the meat smell as it cooked and caramelized, and then she served it with dumplings that she would make herself, which is basically it's a loaf of bread, but you boil it instead of bake it. And then you cut it with a string into slices. So that's the difference between a dumpling and a loaf of bread for me is dry heat and wet heat to bake it. But yeah, I could still smell her kitchen, that pork roast and sauerkraut. I've been thinking about making some lately too.
Yeah.
I might let the banana plants get a few more leaves on them and go with the sauerkraut first.
Yeah, I'm a big, both Karen and I, big sauerkraut fans. Love it.
Yeah, I'm thrown into it.
A little bit of caraway seed in there. Try that. And then cook it down and caramelize it.
Okay.
It gets sweeter.
I want to caramelize it and put it on a sandwich. That sounds good.
Yeah.
That does sound really good.
And you don't need a lot of caraway seeds, just a few.
Yeah.
And it really brings out the flavor, the aroma with the sauerkraut. It really works together.
Nice.
Yeah, food smells there.
That's a Czech, German, Austrian leaning right there.
Well, with that said, is there anything directly that we want to touch into in the trail ground still, or should we go to Breakpoint Heights, you guys think?
I think I'm about ready.
Mm-hmm.
We touched on a lot.
Yeah, I can't think of anything direct.
I'm glad we brought cooking into it at the end there.
Yeah, that was a good way to tie it all in. Of where that's a smell that
We did
all
mention
humans love, and
barbecue.
we've been loving forever. Sometimes I wonder if that helped to, because we started cooking meat, at some point, and of course, cooking meat gives off smell. I mean, I wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's Og drug in the kill and flopped it down in the cave, and it fell in the fire, and he couldn't pull it back out, and they eventually ate it. And I think that's about how it started.
Mm-hmm.
Og the caveman dropped it in the fire.
Yeah,
Oh, you do that?
resting on a rock beside the fire.
Right.
Sometimes I wonder if cooking meat like that helped to bring people together, because that smell would, of course, travel throughout the area, and people are like, "Oh, food." Bring people together, get closer knit communities through this, food that's being prepared that everyone can smell and come to.
A community meal, yeah.
Community meal, yeah.
Yeah. Animals were big back then too.
Mm-hmm.
Think woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
That's very true.
Feed a village.
Yeah.
Either way, that's food.
And then clothe them when it's done.
Well, I think today's discussion, the highlight for me is how gross a lot of the smells are interpreted. Like the ones that we remembered the most seem to be generally smells that are strange or off-putting.
Yeah.
Or bold,
Yeah, smells you don't want to smell.
Yeah.
Smelly smells that make you smell smelly smells.
Yeah. I really like hearing Jeff talk about riding on his motorcycle. That I never really thought of that, but that really is an interesting way a really good way to immerse yourself into those regional smells as you travel through them. It's like you just get to experience it, place to place. This place smells like this place smells like that. Some places smell good, bad, but it's all a part of that ride. I just think I never thought of that on a motorcycle.
Yeah, the coast is all flowers, and Vidalia has onions, and Gilroy has garlic, and the entire area smells like garlic or onions or the flowers. Whatever's happened to be blooming, like in Southern California when the oranges bloom. Just the whole area blooms at once, and it's such an overwhelming smell.
Yeah.
The cooking smells, I have a lifetime of them, from my own recipes to my grandma's that I was just talking about a minute ago.
Mm-hmm.
As far as nasty smells, I could do without ever going to the rendering plant again or the landfill. It's one of those necessary evils.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I definitely don't miss the smell.
Landfill. That was not good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot of smells out there I don't miss.
7 years I worked there.
I don't miss the grease trap and dish pits.
Oh,
I never even thought of that one. That's
rancid
gotta be
grease.
a bad one.
That's another good one.
dude.
Rancid grease.
Ugh.
Yum.
Yeah, that one speaks for itself. Not much to say there other than you don't want to touch or smell that.
I can't imagine a dish pit grease trap because I've cleaned out grease traps on griddles and things like that. But that's different. That's solid. That's you scoop it out and
Yeah, you think about a whole restaurant's worth of people
had water, yeah,
and then all the raw meat and stuff that washes down there. It's everything that's foul and technically able to go down the drain.
You know where they take that? They take it to the rendering plant.
Oh, no kidding?
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, I was wondering what happened.
Yeah, they take it to the rendering plant.
It's bio.
Reprocess it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would sell it as a food ingredient anymore, but you never know.
You never know. That's the problem.
That's the scary thing. That's the scary thing is we could come back to that with a lot of things. We don't know. It's like
We don't know.
It's like Willy Wonka's, man. I don't know.
Yeah,
Keep getting
I know where the ground up bones go that come out of the plant. You know, it goes into animal feeds and plant food, but I don't know about the oil. Does that make it back to the restaurant?
probably turns into canola oil somehow.
Right.
Right. Starts and ends with
Crisco. Yeah.
You know, you can make a
that's where Crisco comes from, everybody. Yeah.
You can make a 72-hour battery out of heat battery out of a Crisco candle.
That's crazy.
That's cool.
Yeah, Dank, do you have any highlights? Any great points?
I like the food part because they weren't gross smells to try to remember.
Yeah.
But we didn't touch on barbecue.
Well, tell us about one Canadian barbecue piece. Come on.
Oh yeah.
We've all heard about American barbecue.
Like smoked meat.
I threw the Kahlua pork out there.
Mm-hmm.
My buddy does smokes like briskets and turkeys and all that kind of stuff. And fuck, that stuff smells so good when you're sitting there waiting.
Oh yeah.
My version of that is my dad and I would go out and catch kokanee, which is like a small landlocked salmon, and we would smoke it. And that smoked kokanee, oh
yeah,
delicious.
I smoked cokes before, but it wasn't the fish. It was a long time ago and it was far away.
Oh man.
That's a whole different smell too, I'll tell you. The kind of chemical smell there.
true that.
Yeah, that is technically a smell.
Yeah, we won't get into that, but that is those are some unique smells involved in that.
I just got our memory, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
anyway,
we're gonna go into diving
Sorry.
next.
Nice.
Let's see. It's okay, Jeff. We know you're trying your best to be honest about your experiences, and that's an honest experience.
Make sense of life one day at a time.
That's the thing. It is a thing. I mean, you're from the time where people did that.
True.
It's just a thing.
At this point, it's just history.
Right. I mean, I can't take it back, so I might as well admit it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Maybe by relaying my choices, I can help somebody else. So,
well,
I'll tell you what, my dog got me through most of that. He was my buddy the whole time.
Dogs are amazing.
Yeah,
they're the best.
Yeah,
mine's sprawled out on the couch over there.
Yeah, when you read the book, that's one thing you'll enjoy about Jim's story, Jeff, is that he has a dog with him most of the time. So, all right.
Into the portal.
So we'll go ahead and start with alphabetical here, and that's just cursed because I guess that's me. Kind of thinking about it, I'm like, oh no. Anyways, my diving depth would be being able to see how history affects smells, like how technology advances and different smells emerge from those technological advances, such as coal moving out, and then we phase in more things like diesel and gas to the power locomotives, things like that. So it's interesting how that would evolve and that would shift with the times, and how much people were exposed to that kind of stuff. Like, I feel like we're experiencing a very similar thing in the degree of plastics and polymers, chemicals. There's a lot of variation when it comes to that. So I think people are trying to understand more nowadays about what's in their food, what's in these products, so they can better decipher and find ways to distinguish when they're eating something they shouldn't be, or how to find something that seems more authentic by the smell of it or the quality. So I know that's kind of a broad way of explaining that, but the general sense of change that occurs with smells, that always seems to be something that's changing within us and within the world around us. So the evolution of sense or of smell is almost like one of the most rapid evolutions, I'd say.
Oh yeah.
To a degree.
Yeah, it changes. Because that moves into my diving depth really well, which is I'm so interested to see what sort of smells that I smell all the time, or smells that are pretty prevalent in our lives right now that will be different in the future. Because what's the future going to smell like? I know that's a weird question to ask, but like it's something we don't think about. But what kinds of things am I going to smell in the future and think, man, I haven't smelled that in years. Yeah, Terminators. Yeah. But it'll just be interesting, because I know, because Jeff talked about coal, because like I can't even place what burning coal smells like. I'm sure I might recognize it if I smelled it. Like if you had a burning piece of coal and I smelled it, I'd be like, okay, I've probably maybe smelled that.
You'd be
before.
like, oh, that's coal.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I remember that smell from somewhere, from some museum or something. But I cannot even place that smell in my mind. But for someone who grew up maybe in Jeff's time or a little before, they'd be like, oh yeah, it's coal. I smell that all the time. That is like, coal is like a huge part of what we smell. But now I don't smell it ever. And so I'm interested I would be so interested to see how the smell shifts into our future, to where certain things that cause these odors will be phased out, like maybe gasoline. That's just a very broad example of something where if we phase that out, the smells would shift to something else, from sort of that exhausty gasoline-y smell. It'd shift to a different type of scent from whatever it replaced that. But
brake dust.
Ooh, one thing we didn't mention, honorable mention, horses. Huge part of history. Tons of smells coming off those guys.
Yeah,
horses are not a part of our life anymore.
Yeah,
or they are, but not a part of everyday life.
Yeah, not like they used to be. No.
Yeah. All right, that's my diving depth.
Now we've talked about a trip walk.
Cattle's definitely in general one of those things. Cattle and livestock.
Yeah, livestock.
Right. And having chickens, I can echo that horse scent. Chickens have their own distinct scent.
Yeah.
With you get ammonia buildup in the wintertime when it's wet like crazy and stuff like that. You try and keep it aired out. So yeah, I can understand a horse farm or a cattle farm, something like that. Pigs are even worse, because they like the slop. So I for me the coal that I grew up with, they were still using it somewhat industrially where I grew up, especially Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
They were doing the steel mills down there and stuff like that, and that wasn't far. I didn't get the smell from them all the way to where I was living, but I would travel through the area. My stepdad was at the Railway Museum, so I was always around steam engines and stuff like that. And when I was a kid, my parents would take us to the county fairs, and they would have steam engines there where they would run on coal and stuff like that. So I kind of grew up with it throughout my life. Blacksmith shops, that kind of thing. So for me, it's something that, you know, like you said, it's gone. It's almost completely gone away, except specialty purposes. And then the cooking is probably my favorite aspect of being able to smell the flowers and the cooking. So, and you can eat flowers, by the way. There's many edible flowers.
Yeah, roses used to be a dessert delicacy in the Middle Ages.
A lot of vitamin C in the rose hips too. Super high. But yeah, the smell of the flowers and the smell of the cooking, those are probably my favorites. I do miss the smell of leaded gasoline, you know, the ethyl from back in the 60s. My dad worked at a gas station, and all the race car drivers would come in on Friday night and gas up on their way to the track. So
that's another one I probably haven't smelled a ton, would be leaded gasoline.
Yeah, it's been out of gas for so long.
Exactly. I don't even know what that would smell like, because I've only ever smelled our, just modern gasoline. Yeah,
they dropped lead out of gas in the early 70s, and then the smaller aircraft, piston-powered aircraft, still need lead, so they sell what they call 100 octane low lead fuel for the small aircraft, and the lead protects the valves from cavitation and pinging, detonation, and then the 100 octane, you know, they can raise the compression a little bit. But the race car drivers here go fill up over at the airport before they go to the racetrack, so you know, it's the same deal.
Yeah.
So there's one thing that reminded me of, like, you know, when you were saying the motorcycle stuff and with the oil and the coal, like my dad told me about this Bumblebee tuna commercial he used to be in. And
I didn't even think of canneries, dude.
Yeah, I'm not sure who he is. I don't think he even remembers if he was, but he does remember eating bread because they didn't want to give the kids tuna. It's too expensive. So they didn't even eat tuna. They ate white bread in there. But it's pretty funny when you look at this, because it's a very cheesy, like.
Hey, I can smell the coal.
Oh yeah. I got to see that area though that they filmed at.
They only gave 4 kids any tuna, the ones that were on camera, right?
Yeah, probably.
And probably no mayonnaise either. It's just dry tuna.
Right. Oh man.
2 stale buns.
They just filled a train full of kids though, and they're like,
all
right,
everybody eat bread. Tuna.
Be happy.
Yeah.
Gave you bread.
Yeah, I could smell the coal and the tuna in that commercial.
Yeah. Imagine being one of the kids that got bread sitting beside one of the kids that got tuna.
Right.
Like, oh man.
You're just sitting here, your mouth is all dry. You're like,
yeah.
Now smile, kids.
Yeah. We only have so much coal to do these takes.
Yeah, and tuna.
And tuna. You know, that was probably the skunk train.
Yeah. Yeah, the skunk
now that
train.
I think about it,
familiar.
The skunk train is the one that runs up on that Mendocino coast.
Yeah. I think that's. I think the thing is, I've been on that train. I can't remember.
And skunks are a whole new smell we didn't touch on today.
Yeah. No, we'll smell them later. At some point in life, that they always occur. They always shoot around. I don't think that we really have much to reflect on today on this show. It's all about smells, so
yeah,
pretty straightforward. I mean,
they're important parts of our lives. The 2 nostrils under your eyeballs.
I think we could say that Chad bringing the subject up, that was a good subject to bring up. I had fun discussing it with you guys. I look forward to more creative discussions like this sometimes in the mix of things where we could kind of free range our ideas and talk about poop maps.
Yeah.
You guys got really too excited down there about that one.
I
know. As I say, whatever floats your coop boat. Yeah. I really appreciate the audience being here and making it this far. We have been trekking along so far. Great. We're doing well on content. It's coming out, and we have interviews coming up that are going to be filling a lot of these gaps. So in a week here, we're going to be having an interview with Jim Schmidt, and we'll be joined by Richard Scully as well as a few other people on the panel. So look forward to seeing those people here and being able to collaborate on some discussions about goals and goal-oriented success, what we do and strive to do to improve our values and our goals. We look forward to seeing you there, and thank you guys for being a part of this intellectual adventure.
Oh yeah.
You bet.
No, thank you, Cameron.
Take care.
I'm waving to the audience, but thank you guys.
Well, I also just want to say, Cameron, I also do want to say, Cameron, thank you for putting this together and doing editing, because I know you put a lot of work into it, and we really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's a lot of fun, guys. We're learning as we go. It's getting less frustrating as we learn how to flow our conversations, because it's and again, it's fine to be organic. It's fine to have some ups and downs with this stuff. So I enjoy editing it as crazy as it can get. Trust me. Sometimes I sit there, I'm like, oh man, I got one more hour of this to go through. And I've already done 2. Like, but
that's funny.
It's for a good purpose. So I'm happy you guys can join us.
For a good purpose.
Yes. Thanks again, Dank, for being here as well, for joining us a little late into it.
Yeah.
I appreciate you making the effort, though. All right. We're having a real Canadian goodbye. We gotta wrap this up. Goodbye, everyone.
See you later.
We'll see you next time.
Oh.